My wife said if her ex had chosen her instead of his addictions, they would still be together. But now I have chosen something better than her, divorce. I am 38 years old and have been married to my wife, Grace, 37, for 14 years. We have known each other since we were teenagers. We practically grew up together. We have two wonderful children, Madison, 13, and Mason, 11, who are the light of our lives. I always thought we had a solid marriage based on trust and mutual love, but something came out this weekend that has made me question everything. Last Friday, Grace and I were invited to a high school alumni reunion. It was an adult-only event, so we left the children with my parents. The atmosphere was lively, with everyone reminiscing about old times and catching up on our lives. As expected at these types of gatherings, the alcohol flowed freely. Grace and I don't usually drink much, but that night we decided to relax a little. I limited myself to a couple of beers, but I noticed that Grace was drinking more than usual. I didn't think much of it at the time. I just assumed she was enjoying a carefree night, especially because we wouldn't have our children that night, as they would be spending the night with my parents. As the night progressed, the atmosphere became more relaxed, and the conversations grew more personal. At one point, a group of friends started talking about Logan, Grace's ex-boyfriend. Logan and Grace had been a couple during high school and part of university before she and I started dating. I overheard fragments of the conversation. Apparently, Logan had fallen into a spiral of addiction to drugs and alcohol. Some of our friends expressed their concern and regret over what was happening to him. I remembered that this had been precisely the reason Grace had ended things with him so many years ago. Grace and I started dating approximately a year after her breakup with Logan. I always knew of his existence, of course, but it was never a frequent topic of conversation between us. Grace had told me that the relationship was over because of Logan's drug problems, but we hadn't delved much deeper into the subject. I respected her past and assumed that if there was anything important to share, she would tell me. That's when it happened. Grace, visibly affected by alcohol, joined the conversation about Logan. Her voice was louder than usual, and I noticed a tone I had never heard from her before. With a mixture of sadness and bitterness, she said something that chilled my blood. You know? I gave Logan the choice. I told him to choose between drugs or me. He chose drugs. If he had chosen to stay with me, we would probably still be together. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel everyone's eyes alternating between me and Grace. My mind went blank for a moment, trying to process what I had just heard. Had my wife, the woman with whom I have shared the last 16 years of my life, just implied that I was her second choice? I wanted to say something, to confront her at that very moment, but I held back. We had all been drinking, and that was not the time or place to have an argument that could change our lives. Besides, a part of me hoped that it was just the alcohol talking and that the next day Grace would realize how inappropriate her comment was and feel sorry about it. The rest of the night passed in a haze. I tried to keep my composure, to continue socializing as if nothing had happened, but Grace's words echoed in my head over and over again. When we finally got home, Grace collapsed into bed while I stayed up for hours, replaying every moment of our relationship, looking for signs I might have missed. The next morning, during breakfast, Grace noticed that I was unusually quiet. The children were still at my parents' house, so we were alone. She asked me what was wrong, and I decided it was time to address the issue. Grace, I began, trying to stay calm, what you said last night about Logan has made me question our entire relationship. Do you really see me as your second choice? I expected her to immediately deny what she had said, to assure me it was just a stupid comment brought on by the alcohol. But her reaction was completely different from what I expected. Without saying a word, she got up from the table and locked herself in our room. I called her several times, asking her to come out and talk like adults, but I got no answer. The rest of the day passed in silence. Grace only left the room to go to the bathroom or get a drink from the kitchen, avoiding any eye contact with me. That night, I decided to sleep on the couch, not because I wanted to punish her, but because I felt we needed space to process what was happening. I hoped that the next day, with a clearer head, we could have an honest conversation about what had happened. I thought maybe she still had a hangover and would finally talk to me. But Sunday came, and the situation didn't improve. Grace continued with her silent treatment, refusing to talk to me beyond the necessary coordination for the children, who returned home that afternoon. Madison and Mason noticed something was wrong, but we tried to act normally in front of them. And here I am now, writing this on Sunday night, after another day of silence and tension. I can't understand why Grace is acting this way. She was the one who made the hurtful comment, and now she refuses to talk to me about it. I feel like I'm being punished for something I didn't do. Part of me wants to yell at her, demand an explanation, but I know that would only make things worse. Another part wants to pretend nothing happened, to go back to our normal routine and bury this incident. But I know I can't do that. Her comment has opened a Pandora's box of insecurities and doubts that I can't simply ignore. Have I really been just a replacement all these years? Our life together, our children, our shared dreams, has all of that just been a plan B for her? And if Logan had quit drugs, would Grace have run back into his arms? I know that 16 years of marriage can't be summed up in a single comment made under the influence of alcohol. I know we've built a life together, that we have 2 children, but I can't shake the feeling that something fundamental in our relationship has broken. I need to know if I'm overreacting. Should I give Grace more time to process what happened? Should I insist on having a conversation, even if she doesn't want to? Or should I start to consider that maybe our relationship isn't as solid as I always thought? Reddit, I need your honest opinion. Am I the bad guy for feeling this way? Am I making a mountain out of a molehill, or am I right to be concerned about the future of my marriage? Update, it's been almost 5 days since my original post, and I wanted to give you an update on my situation. First, I want to express my gratitude to those who took the time to respond to my post. It has been a difficult week, but your comments have helped me process my emotions and think about the next steps to take. Before I go into the details of what has happened this week, I'd like to address some of the most frequently asked questions and comments I've received. Many of you asked about the nature of Grace and Logan's relationship and how exactly it ended. After much thought, I realized that I really didn't know as many details as I thought I did. Grace and Logan were together for 4 years, from the second year of high school until the second year of college. From what Grace had told me, their relationship was quite intense, as teenage relationships tend to be. Logan's drug problem began during their last year together. At first, according to Grace, it was just recreational, but it gradually escalated to harder drugs. Grace tried to help him for months, even accompanying him to some meetings, but the situation became untenable when Logan began to miss classes and put his academic future at risk. Now comment update to tag you on part 2.